everyone, Chef B back again with pie making. So today we are going to make an old-fashioned apple pie. So I have my apples here. Obviously you need a little bit of sugar for sweetness, some cinnamon, or you can use whatever spices you want. The butter is just to kind of dab the top to give it a little more richness. And then of course you need some sort of starch. So this one is actually going to use flour. So what I want to show you first is how to cut apples really quick, because I know sometimes that's kind of difficult for students or for people in general. So usually what I do when I get an apple, I make sure I get a nice peeler, and then, you know, there's actually machines that you can use to do this, but I just like to do it by hand. And basically all I do is I just kind of go around the top here, I go around the bottom, and then I just kind of do the sides. And you know, it just takes a little bit of practice. Some people do it with a paring knife, which I think sometimes you take too much peel off. You can actually leave the peel on this if you want, but I think it just makes for a nicer pie. Especially with Granny Smith apples, their peel is kind of tough. So you look there, it's already peeled, and then you're just gonna take a knife, cut it in half, and then I just remove the little top and bottom parts, because this way you don't waste a lot of apple. All right, so we're gonna take that guy out. And then the core part, you know, if you have like a melon baller like this, it works really well. You just put it in there and then it pops it out. But actually, if you have a set of measuring spoons, those actually work just as well. So that way you don't have to go out and buy any special equipment. So you just wanna be careful that you don't bend them too much. And then once you get that, we're just gonna cut them in half and then in 4 pieces, and then we'll add them to our other apples. And then all we're gonna do is just toss everything together raw, and then this pie, the filling is actually gonna cook inside the shell as it's baking. So this pie is gonna have 2 shells. All right, so we're gonna put that there, get rid of these. So now what we're gonna do is now we're going to add all of our sugar, and we're just going to toss that together a little bit. Make sure we break up those apples, and then we're going to add our flour. So obviously you need some sort of starch in there to, you know, to bind it together. There are some recipes with cornstarch, but usually those are pre-cooked and then you put them in the pie shell. Now you'll look, this looks like a lot, so when we bring our pie shell over here, it's gonna look like it's a large amount. So you just wanna toss that up a little bit. All right, I think that looks good. Let me get this stuff out of the way. Now I do have my pie shell here. Of course I have a sheet tray underneath, but so I can work with it, I'm just gonna use the pie shell here. Now what I usually do is, just this first layer on the bottom, I usually put a little row of apples around. That just kind of makes sure that, you know, there's something in the way there, so when it's baking, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't collapse inside. So I usually just put a little row like that. And then I kind of make sure that the bottom is pretty solid too. And then I pretty much just start dumping all the rest in here. And then I kind of do the same around the edges, so that just gives it nice. If you want to take your time and put them in there and arrange them, you can. You know, if you're making 500 of these at a time, probably not so conducive to do that. All right, so this is looking pretty good here. Now it does, like I said, it looks really tall, but remember, this is gonna cook down a lot, so you wanna make sure it's all kind of filled in there. I think we got a few extra apples here we can shove in here and there. All right, I think that's looking good here. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to get our shell. So our top shell, I already have it rolled out. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna put that on top, and then I'm gonna tuck it underneath. So here's our shell. So you want a pretty good overhang. So this one's pretty close to the size I need. And then all I'm gonna do is, so if you see that, I'm just gonna lift that bottom shell up and I'm just gonna tuck it underneath. So I'm just tucking it underneath all the way around, and then I'm gonna seal it and then we'll make our cool little fancy design. But you really want to make sure you get that tucked under there because you want it to seal. Because then otherwise, you know, as your apple pie starts baking, it's going to be bubbling out. And then it'll make a mess in the oven, and then I'm sure whoever is in charge of your kitchen will not be very happy. Okay? All right, and then same thing, so I just kind of use my finger. Okay, this basically what this does is it adds a little design, but it also helps kind of seal your pie shell. So you don't have to worry about stuff leaking out of there. And then all we have to do when we're done with this is we're gonna cut some vent holes, right? Because our fruit filling is gonna produce a lot of steam and we don't want it to blow out. So all you really have to do is, what I like to do is cut it so how you're gonna, you know, serve the pie. So this one will probably be 8 pieces. So I'm gonna pre-cut that right there. So then when I go to cut it after it's baked, it's a lot easier with those already pre-cut. So that's kind of the hole I like to use. And you know what I realized? I forgot my butter. But that's basically it. Basically, before you put the top shell on, you sprinkle the butter on top, and then you put the top on the pie. And then all I do is take a little bit of raw sugar, and then you can sprinkle that on top, and it gives it a nice little crunch. All right, and that's your apple pie.